Right, let's go.
Hello and welcome to episode 10 of the Just Discourse Podcast. Remember to like and subscribe. You are listening to Matt Harpe and Max Smith. Good afternoon, my friend.
How are you, sir?
Very well, very well. We hit double digits.
I know, we made it.
I know.
We made it.
Hit the big leagues.
We got there.
Looking good. It feels like I've been ages since I've seen you, mate.
I know, it's been a while.
I know. It's only been a week.
Not even that.
Yeah, not even that.
Less than 24 hours.
Yeah, there you go. We live in each other's pockets.
Yeah.
I had a
Well, the guys have to know that I did a workout with Matt yesterday, and it was the first workout Matt's done in how long?
That's not the point, okay? You're exercising your mind. If you refer back to episode 7 when we talked about visualizing your workouts.
He hasn't been visualizing enough, let me tell you that.
Okay, it's that kind of workout. I'm focusing more on calisthenics and, plyometrics as well.
Yeah.
A lot of climbing, a lot of drumming.
It's all wrist work, yeah?
It's all wrist work, baby. It's all on the elbows. It's actually the whole arm getting moving.
You've got plenty of experience in that, though.
Don't you worry about it. Well, professional and all that.
You get paid to do it, do you?
Yeah. Fair play. Yeah. Well, first couple of pennies, you're still professional, so you get paid for it. I had a question for you, mate. Something that was on my mind. As you can see, I'm in business because it's the first time I've turned up with a pad and a pen.
Physical as well.
I know, physical one, going old school. How did you get into what you're doing?
So my business, it was the reason, a bit like when I talk about my goals and goal setting and stuff like that. When I was thinking about starting a business, I basically wrote down the things that I wanted to be able to do within a business. Not like the products I wanted to sell or anything like that. I wanted to have certain aspects of the business, whatever it was, that would work with my lifestyle. Or the lifestyle I wanted, effectively. Not the one I had at the time, but the one I wanted to work towards to be having in the future. So the main thing coming from, the property industry is I learnt residual income businesses, although they take a lot longer to build up and create profit, after they've snowballed, then you've got that residual income dropping in every month, and all you have to do is just keep building and building and building, that number of clients each month. And of course, after a couple of years, you have substantial growth. Whereas let's take residential lettings versus residential sales, is in lettings again, they build up the landlords each month, and as long as they keep bringing landlords on and the other landlords, they don't lose landlords, of course their income increases every month. So if they don't lose any landlords, but they don't take any more landlords on, they're going to earn exactly the same amount of money as they did the month before. Whereas in sales, it comes to the end of the month, the slate is wiped clean, and you've got to start again. So every day it's more of a slog. You have to make the sales to generate the income for yourself effectively. So I was thinking, if I had a residual income business like that, although, as I said, it would take a bit more work in the front end, in the back end, you should really be able to sit back a bit more and enjoy it a bit more. So that's what I wanted, especially, at my young age.
Not saying anything.
3 weeks, and I'm technically not young anymore.
There you go, my friend.
But yeah, at this age, I wanted something that, I could, once I build it up, it snowballs and it sort of does itself, rather than having to constantly be on it every month. Coming from the sales background, that it would be nice to be able to accrue something like that. And I just wrote these things down on a piece of paper, and then effectively worked towards them, or tried to figure out what it was that would work. So I did residual income. I love driving, so it would have been nice to do something to do with driving. Now, I actually assumed this would be something in the second or third business that I were to create, but we'll come back to that in a second. Work remotely, so something that I don't necessarily need to be in the office. I mean, these days we can all work remotely as long as we've got our iPads or our computers and stuff like that, and our mobiles, then we can work from wherever. So I wanted to do something like that. and then a business that had intrinsic value, i.e. with my business, you accrue assets so that once you've got those assets, you have the ability to sell the business on at a later date. If I ever wanted to, I still haven't decided whether I want to. But if it came to a point 5, 10, 15 years down the line, and I've got so many units and the business itself was worth a certain amount. Again, let's use the residential lettings versus the residential sales analogy. The residential sales side of an estate agency is actually worth nothing. It's only worth the value of the people within that business. And you get it a lot of the time, especially in an estate agency, where the business is predicated on the one or two individuals that generate that income. So unless you have a huge brand, which, again, brands don't really mean anything without the back-end intrinsic value, they are worthless to any investment bank or anyone like that who's looking to buy it, because as soon as that gets sold, the people that created and perpetuate that intrinsic value are gone, i.e. the owner or the person who started the business. Whereas in the letting side of things, of course, they build up a portfolio, don't they? So once they built up a portfolio, that's got a guaranteed monthly income, providing obviously you don't fuck up in the meantime, but that's got a guaranteed monthly income, therefore it has value to someone who were to buy it. So that's what I was thinking. If we're going to get something like that, an asset rich, for me, for my business, an asset rich business. So I've got the assets there, and I've got the clients, and the contracts create that residual intrinsic value to a potential purchaser or someone who would look to buy it. So they were the 4 main things I wanted. And I always think about, especially with the goals, and this is why I'm so, regimented when I say about writing them down, is I think, especially with the way our brains work, that effectively we are like magnets. So we choose what we want to attract into our lives, into the outside world in front of us. Not really, it's already there. However, you have to choose the goal to wade through everything else that's there. Because obviously, if you've got no direction, as we said before, everything is just random, isn't it? It's meaningless and doesn't have any real value or understanding to your life. However, if you've got a set goal, as I say, let's use these 4 things as an example. When an opportunity arose in whatever industry it is, for me, is this industry, I knew to jump at it, because I said, well, it wasn't overnight. I wrote it down. I went through lots of different scenarios and different business ideas and models and stuff like that, and what would work. Obviously, I would say a handful, maybe 20, didn't really fit with what I needed. And then the industry I'm currently in just sort of fell into my lap. I made a decision, and that's what I wanted, and it magically appeared, or I identified it because it was what I was looking for, effectively.
So before you had written any of this down, did you have any inkling that this is the industry or this is the particular job that you were going to? No. So
interesting. One thing that most of the entrepreneurs and successful people that I listen to and follow, they say, don't go into an unknown industry, because once the times get tough, you've got no one to either lean on. You haven't really got a network in that industry. So, and your knowledge is not based in that industry. It's just, you've just started it. So it's a lot harder when shit hits the fan to recover from whatever issues there are. And there's always issues in business. And I think it's something like 80% of businesses fail in the first year. Mm-hmm. And then a further 90% of businesses fail in the first 5 years. So again, it's not really that good odds for people looking to set up businesses. So you've got to be strict in your conviction and when you're creating the business, but also have some type of background knowledge in it. Now, for myself, my old man having a storage company, I started with the shipping containers. So I started renting shipping containers and stuff like that to build in sites because I had the capability to get hold of them. I could lean on his network in order to purchase them. He's obviously bought quite a few over the years, so he knew the pricing and all that type of stuff, so I knew where to negotiate and what sort of prices I should be paying for them, and I had the ability to transport them. Whereas, of course, if I didn't have any of that and a place to store them, that's obviously another massive thing. If you haven't got, for me, if I didn't have that capability, there's no way I would have been able to go into this industry.
Fascinating. I was just very curious because there's many facets to it. One that I just had as a thought, I was like, why this of all things? But that's very interesting that you were saying that you listed the things that you wanted from effectively life.
Yeah, that's what you got to do. And
then would you say that by writing those things down, that gave you greater clarity in your head?
100%. Yeah, and that was my point about saying how you sort of attract it to you. You don't really attract it, but you can wade through all the nonsense out there in the world that doesn't have value to what you're looking for. Do you know what I mean? Same as I've said using the analogy before. If you don't know where you're going, where do you start? But if you know you're going to Manchester, okay, well you root out a plan to get there. So if you write down all the things you want, when something presents itself, you can go, well, does it have this aspect? Does it have this aspect? Does it have this aspect? No, okay, not the right one. Move on to the next one. And keep going like that. But if you jumped into the first thing you did because you had no real outline of what you wanted, pardon me, and I assume this is what a lot of people do with business, is they have no real knowledge. They think, oh, let's get into this because this will be good. There's somebody else making money at this, blah, 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 blah. But they've got none of the background knowledge, capability, or network in order to push forward in it. And, of course, ends up failing.
That's very interesting because there's a crossover with this in creativity.
Okay.
So if you're writing music or writing lyrics or something, there's a certain school of thought being that the song or the music or whatever is in your head. Mm-hmm. You just got to write stuff down because it clears the crap out of the way.
Yeah.
So like the first 10 things you write down are rubbish. The 11th one, that's a bit better. And then the next 10, shit. And then the 22nd one, you're like, oh, that's all right. And then so on and so on. And so you get to number 100, you're like, oh, that's a song right there.
Yeah.
But the physical act of writing it down empties it here.
Exactly, yeah.
And it gives you more clarity.
And it you can put this to absolutely anything you want. Let's use a sports person as an example, a golfer. So if they want to be a professional golfer, okay, well, or let's start with a sportsman at first, right? They want to do some type of sports.
Yeah.
Okay, what are they good at? What are they good at? Golf, football, blah, blah, blah. Okay, what are they best at and what are they most interested in and what do they have most background in? Golf. And then they choose to pursue that and obviously practice. And really they need a clear outline goal. I want to be the PGA Tour winner or something like that. For that to push them forward, put the blinders on, so then they can, start climbing that ladder in order to achieve what they want.
The same thing with the English rowing team, the 2012 Olympics. They just had a sign above their training door, and it just said, "Doesn't make the boat go faster." So every single decision they make, they ask themselves that question.
Yeah. And
you're like, that is such a fucking good question to do.
Yeah, and that's why little quotes and snippets and stuff like that are so powerful. Especially if they're specific and direct to what you're looking to pursue.
Fascinating.
Yeah, but yeah, that was the main thing. What about yourself?
I think for me, we have a very shared values. I coming from property and then from retail, being in a decade's worth of my time being in environments where I had to be in a physical location at a physical amount of time, and it had to be this 9-hour duration every single day. my values changed over time. So the things that I need and things that are most important to me is my time and my flexibility, and to be the master of my own time.
And if I can interject on that one, forgive me, that was one of the main reasons I wanted a residual income business, because once you built it, you should be able to, in sales, you take a day off, you're losing sales, you're losing potential income. Whereas if you've got residual income, you can take a day off here or there, and you'll be okay, which means you've got that time, which equals freedom, doesn't it?
Yeah, but there's a difference. It's interesting that people take the three typical business or career paths people would take, which would be a sales environment, corporate, or sole trader. So then, the corporate one would be, again, you'd have that bit more security, so you'd take your time off as holiday and you still get paid a certain amount or whatever, but you're subject to the corporate rat race bullshit. So
cutthroat politics.
Yeah, exactly. Just a facade for government bureaucracy, really, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But back to your question for me. Yeah, similar values. Freedom for me, time. For what I'm alongside residual income, I wanted multiple streams of income. So I was never just reliant on one. So I'm still very early stages in the 3 disciplines I'm in.
So I can't stress enough how having multiple streams of income is, especially in this day and age. I mean, the previous generations you may have been able to get away with one, but the way life is these days and how fast paced and how everything's changing so much, you can't just rely on one. Yeah. 2 generations ago, we had one breadwinner in the family, and that was enough to pay for, your car, house, holidays, everything. I think my granddad bought his first house for about $2,500.
Oh, my grandparents were the same. Yeah, it's very upsetting.
And in 60 years, that's completely changed to the point where most families or households these days need at least 2 breadwinners to just be able to pay for the mortgage and the cars and stuff.
And then try and have a hope and taking care of the kids.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's fascinating. But those were the main reasons for me, for the things that I'm doing. Which, as I said, because I'm on the early stage of it, it's not a huge amount of money, but it's proof of concept that it works. Yeah. And that's enough for me. And intellectually, it's very stimulating as well, because it's means I'm always being tested and I'm always being challenged. As opposed to if I just had one thing, I haven't been doing just one thing for years. My brain just turns to mush. And don't get me wrong, it is fucking scary.
You turn into a robot when you're just doing the same thing over and over again, don't you? You need something different constantly to challenge yourself.
Well, then also
learn and grow.
The Venn diagram, or that apex point between excitement and fear, is where you feel truly alive. I think. Yeah. Because you're living you're getting the most out of wherever you can, and the fact that you are excited and you are a bit scared means it actually means something to you.
Well, that's also what most of human history has been like. It's only in, again, our generation, maybe the generation before, there's been no real, or where comfort has started to come in, hasn't it? So once you get comfortable, your brain switches off, your body switches off. You're not in that constant alert mode, which we've lived in for all of civilization, effectively. And it's interesting to see the effect it has. A bit like, Darwin's theory of evolution is you can see it more in this day and age playing out in front of you. Survival of the fittest is, there's some people that just fall by the wayside so quickly because they don't constantly look to learn, grow and improve themselves, and then they just get wiped out when we have these recessions or these downturns in the market.
See, I would say that you are correct in times of struggle, difficulty, when they come up, these people do fall by the wayside. But I would disagree slightly with that insofar as if there's no difficult times, you don't have to be fit to survive. Yeah. Because you've got it's like the Michael Easton book, Comfort Crisis. You don't need to be fit to survive. You're lulled into Netflix and takeaways to being sedated into your life of a corporate job you go to 5 days a week, and then maybe get drunk on the weekend.
And it's all predicated on, and I think it's pushed on us a lot these days, is about enjoying yourself and having fun and all this. And it's like, again, coming back to most of human history, we haven't lived to have fun. We've lived for survival. It's only in this generation where we have been fortunate enough, whether that's the right word or not, to have the capability to be able to sit back and relax. And only time will tell. I think it's going to end horribly. I hope it doesn't. I'm a positive guy, but the way I see a lot of things these days, with most people's attitude towards just life in general and taking things for granted, is once you take things for granted, they tend to fall by the wayside, don't they?
Well, Aldous Huxley said it in A Brave New World. He said the cruelest thing you can give a man is to give him too much leisure.
Yeah.
Which, I read that during the pandemic. So when I was locked down at home, I was like, he is bang on the money. Because there was the first few weeks, there was like no structure, and I was like going a bit weird. But I was like, as soon as you give yourself structure, you're like, okay, good.
You have to have structure.
You need it.
Has to be order.
Yeah.
If there's no order, there's just chaos.
Yeah.
And you can use anything as an example. If we were to have an agreement on something, whatever it is, agreement on a relationship, say with you or your partner, you and your partner, you say, look, well, obviously we're together now, we're not going to cheat on each other, blah, 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 or be with other people. And they're like, yeah. And then they just go off with other people, and you're like, hang on. I've been working to this construct and you haven't. It's like, it's chaotic, isn't it? And you can't work on the next steps if you don't have any order to be able to move forward. I don't know why I used that as an example, but I just thought that's the first one that came into my head.
Well, and also it's poignant, it's relatable, with the idea of comfort being more endemic for all of us, and with the deterioration of the family structure by the state, that is more common now.
Yeah, it's massively impactful.
So it's a poignant statement to make. Obviously, in a way, we can blame Henry VIII for inventing the notion of it, but the facts are there is more of it going on with divorce rates or infidelity, as it were, going on.
Or we could use comfort as an example, for you to get to the gym and have, a fit, strong body, you've got to have discipline. You've got to actually do the work and eat the right foods and, follow your plan all the way through consistently. Otherwise, you don't actually achieve anything. But, if you just live chaotically and you're like, oh, I'll do it one day. Oh, I can't bother today. Oh, I'm going to get 4 takeaways this week or blah, 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 blah. Then you just end up being a fat slob, don't you?
Don't get me wrong, takeaways are good.
Oh, I love a good takeaway.
Yeah.
And I'll probably spend too much on takeaways. but I'll do the work beforehand, do you know what I mean? As a I'll make sure I do go
make
to
sure
the
you
gym
earn it.
And do the work, exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
And I can't remember who said it, but I'm terrible like this. And I won't eat breakfast in the morning until I've achieved at least 3 things.
Fair play. Interesting.
And I don't know if it's intrinsic in me or, intrinsic in human nature. Because, again, I guess men back in the caveman days or hunter-gatherer days or, even a bit closer, they'd get up in the morning, they would have to go and hunt for food and stuff like that before they could eat it, give it to the family, and then they'd get some as well.
Yeah, I wonder whether in different tribes they had with lions, the males eat first.
I think it's probably like that in most places, isn't it? And then the other people get the scraps.
Yeah. That'd be fascinating. So that was my question. That was number 1 on my list. What's on your list, buddy?
So my list for questions today is we were talking previously about sort of books and stuff like that and Kickstarter books, weren't we? In what pushed you on your journey to actually making the leap of faith into what you're doing now, from the comfort of the guaranteed income over to the risky world of working for yourself?
The books for that,
or motivations, either one.
Well, being corny and cringy, you in no small part, mate.
Okay. Yes. Well, I'm glad I'm having a positive impact on the world.
Yeah, finna so far.
Finally.
Yeah. I think it's taken 30 years.
Yeah,
what?
exactly. Yeah.
It was I started changing. I don't believe in coincidences in the universe. I believe in confluences. Things happen for a reason, partly due to how you influence it, but we'll come on to that another time. So for you and I reconnecting at the beginning of the year, and then the amount of time we spent talking, then on my podcast for 3.5 hours or whatever, and then obviously graduating to this, that was all meant to happen. And that combined with two of my other ventures reaching a certain level that required a certain level of time that I wasn't able to commit whilst having a full-time job. Yep. I was like, this full-time job I don't have any fulfillment or challenge from anymore, whereas these other 4 things I do, and I need to take I'm at an age now where I can afford the risk of ditching a well-paid job, which was grinding my soul into dust, to then take something that was a risk and of very little, if not fuck all money to begin with. But I loved every minute of it. There was no choice by that, because there wasn't a specific book that I've had recently that done it. I have
just life experiences, I guess.
Life experience, and I've spoken about before on here. I think it was episode 5 with Will Brazil. My friend introduced me to podcasts in a period of my life where I was drowning and didn't realise it. So that was 2018. So since then, I've probably consumed about 2,000 or 3,000 of them. And that whole accumulation of information and listening to people who have risked and won and struggled and lost has taught me that now is the time to take a risk. Don't take a risk in 5 or 10 years' time when you've got a mortgage, you've got kids, you've got a dog and a cat. Don't do that.
Well, everything is a risk, isn't it? Staying in your current position is a risk. You know, staying working with somebody else is a risk. Yeah. That a business can go under and they can let you go, and then you'll be sat with your dick in your hands. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And even all the and I know all the pursuits I'm doing are a risk. You know, some of them are taking way longer than I thought they would. But I haven't stopped. Yeah. I haven't given up on it. It's just then there's some issues that are in my control, which is things that I'm aware of, need to address. There's some things that are out of my control, which are frustrating, but I haven't stopped. So it's a combination of realising all the things that I've accumulated, listening to over time, plus dissatisfaction, plus opportunity, plus, I suppose, a dogged persistence is where I've come to now, and why I'm on the path I'm on at the minute. Because the more I talk to people and the more I observe and realise, there is a near fucking infinite possibilities of potential out there for anything.
Yeah, of course.
Whatever you want to do. It's only your own mental limitations that hold you back. So don't get me wrong, when the first couple of days when I left my job, I was shitting myself. And I was scared out of my head. I'm like, you fucking idiot, you should have stayed with that job until you had qualified and whatever.
But you can use that fear in 2 ways. You can let it cripple you and you crumble, or use that fear as a motivator to drive you forward.
Oh, fuck yes. And that's what it's done.
And that's the best thing, isn't it? Like you again, you're going to have fear in those situations either way. It just depends what, risk you want. I think, I was reading a thing on Patrick Bet-David the other day, and he was saying, marriage is risky, but staying single is riskier. All those types of things. Having children is risky, but being childless is riskier. Whichever way you swing it, there's going to be risk, but it depends what level of risk you are prepared to undertake in order to get where you want.
And if you look at it from being in a corporate job or being in the retail job I was in before, I was numb.
Yeah.
And I was comfortable. And being scared is infinitely better than either of those two things.
Yeah. And comfort is the biggest killer of motivation.
And the slowest killer you're going to find. It's the slowest killer of humans.
Yeah, because you don't realise until it's too late to do something about it.
Yeah, we're all frogs being slowly boiled.
Yeah, and I liked when you used that analogy. It made a lot of sense, which I'd never really thought about it like that before. But it's perfect.
Yeah, you don't notice that you are being
boiled alive.
But you're being inundated with comfort. It was what happened with the. It was what happened with the. Was that the Germans? It was the Russians. When they before the Cold War, they tried to infiltrate the West overtly. So that's where the whole appeals and the creation of to the masses and the creation of the word the proletariat, being that Russian thinking at the time being, if we let the common workers know that you are greater than the elites, you are more, as a group, you are more powerful than them, you can do anything. If we just tell them that, then they will rise up and then take them over. Yeah. No, the Russians got gunned down because the people of the West were like, you can fuck right off because this is our life and we like it right now. Go away. So the Russians were like, okay, we did that wrong. That's what we need to do. We need to infiltrate their places of education and slowly change the cultural perception.
Was that Yuri Bezmenov?
Yeah, your boy. Terrifying, that man.
I know, yeah.
Yeah, for anyone who hasn't listened to this, there's a YouTube...
Was it the 60s or the 70s?
Yeah, it was a YouTube interview with this guy called Yuri Bezmenov, who was a Russian de facto double agent who laid out what Russia will do to the West over the next 100 years or so. And it's literally chilling because everything we're seeing now with the whole changing of what words mean, like the rise of wokeism, the obsession with gender, all that sort of stuff. It's terrifying how it's just laid out.
And the over-sexualizing of everything.
Yep.
Down to children, which is absolutely disgusting.
Yeah.
It's been a big hype about it already, but I think it was about 4 or 5 weeks ago, Channel 4 released that TV show. And it was I can't remember what it was called, but effectively they were teaching children about certain organs of the body. They literally just lined up a load of children and then just got a load of adults to come and just take their clothes off.
No.
Just whip their knobs out and vaginas in front of everyone.
What?
And you're like, hang on. They should be going to prison. Like, how is that a TV show?
What?
Like, if you just went to a school and whipped your knob out, bang, prison. But they were doing it on TV as if it was educational.
Jesus Christ.
I think there was a huge uproar. I think there was like one episode.
Okay, there you go.
And then they pulled it down. Yeah. But the fact that they even got that far.
There's someone greenlit that, yeah.
Yeah, and I reckon they must have filmed a few episodes before it really happened. They may have only released one. But who came up with that idea and who wasn't reading... Well, you don't even need to read a law book to understand it. That's fucking weird.
So to answer your question, whoever came up with that idea is someone who doesn't have kids.
Yeah. Or is a paedophile.
Yeah, most...
Or is actually so stuck in this woke mentality that they are completely blind to the absolute atrocities that they were creating there.
Yeah, as soon as you bring kids into anything, people are like, I'm going to pull your hair, I'm going to pull your eyes out. Like, you don't do that shit to kids.
But also, who let their kids on that TV show?
Who let kids hang out with Michael Jackson?
True, yeah, they were some crazy people.
Very crazy people.
They loved Michael Jackson more than they loved their children.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's absolutely mental, this world. Anyway, going back to the Yuri Bezmenov woke agenda.
Mm-hmm.
Carry on.
Oh no! I think that was it for what. Was that it? I think that was it from there.
But yeah, so that was the point. Is that what Russia?
Sorry if I lost my train of thoughts. I think that was it though. Is what I was trying.
You're thinking about penises now, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm distracted. Okay, I know I'm back. No, I think that was my point.
But yeah, you can see it playing out in front of us, and it's crazy. And I speak to. I often get called by the family like conspiracy theorists and stuff like that. And I'm like,
it's almost a badge of honor at this point.
yeah. It's like nothing I'm talking about is a conspiracy. It's all like fact.
Yeah.
That you've read and researched and looked at what's actually happening in the world, and it's always the people that just choose to be willfully ignorant to it, and you think, what's going on here? But my point on that is, the Yuri Bezmenov thing, when you know the goal or what they're leading to, you can see it playing out in front of you.
Yeah.
But if you don't understand that, everything just appears random. Which weirdly goes back to us writing our goals down and stuff like that. Is if you know where they're trying to lead you, you can see all the steps happening in front of you.
The Russians wrote down their goals.
Exactly. They wrote down their goals, and they didn't tell anyone about them, so no one would know what was going on.
Yeah.
Mental.
Yeah, utterly fascinating. There's a book called The White Pill by Michael Malice, who's a political commentator and a self-styled anarchist. But he's a Russian citizen who lives in the States now, and he basically lists in detail what happened in Russia between World War One and...
Because the Cold War, that was after World War Two.
The Cold War was the 50s. So I think it was World War One up till the 50s, and it just the level of atrocity and barbarity that it goes through is horrific. But his entire point, so it's called The White Pill, because his entire point was like, that is the most disgusting things that humans can do, and we won.
Yeah,
which is his point. He's like, we can, whatever perceived horror or injustice we have right now, it compares nothing towards that. And we still won.
So my point on that is there's a theory, and I don't know too much about this. I've only read small amounts on it. However, it was effectively saying that the Third Reich didn't fail. It was
interesting.
Going back to your point of the overt war and killing and all that type of stuff.
Yeah.
They realised it didn't work because people ended up fighting back.
And
then obviously ties into the Yuri Bezmenov type thing, is that they acted like they lost. Hitler killed himself, etc., etc. But Operation Paperclip, where was it thousands and thousands of Nazi scientists were allowed to come to or go to the US. Now there's lots of talk about loads of them going to Argentina and stuff like that, and all various different places, and effectively they then infiltrated the West in that way and covertly continued their plot to take over, if you know what I mean. And then going back to the woke thing, it's kind of like, well, is it really our own agenda pushing that, or is it predicated on the Fourth Reich? I think
it's definitely not in our wokeism is not in our interests as a civilization.
That's my point. Yeah.
I think you are 100% factually right about Operation Paperclip.
I'll just start by saying that was a complete theory. I just commented on there. Operation Paperclip is not a theory. That is 100% correct.
That is fact. And for anyone who doesn't believe it, the lead scientist who was taking was a gentleman called Werner von Braun, a gentleman who was renowned for owning munitions factories, and every week he'd hang the 3 slowest Jews from the ceiling.
Jesus Christ.
To inspire the rest of them to work faster. But he was taken over, and he founded NASA.
Yes, yeah.
So
I didn't realise that was that chap.
Look that one up. I think, so that's 100% right. I don't think wokeism is the Fourth Reich, though, only because Nazism is fascism. It's the right wing. Wokeism and it is from Russia, which is communism. So that's on the left-hand side. So that's extreme socialism. You're right in the fact that in the way that politics is a shoehorn. Well, shoehorn is a horseshoe, I beg your pardon. Yeah. They're very close to each other.
Because the extreme right wing, i.e. fascism, and the extreme left wing, i.e. communism,
next to each other.
Although they use different methods to achieve their goal, they both end up achieving the same thing.
Yeah. It's a totalitarian dictatorship. Yeah. Either by an individual or the state, by the way. I mean, who knows? Maybe they're interchangeable at this point. That would be actually way more insidious if it was fascism, because they're then using tactics of socialism.
Well, I don't know about you, but especially in the West. Now, I might butcher this, but is fascism not government control over business and private enterprises? Let's Google it.
System or government characterized by extreme dictatorship.
Let's have a look. Definition.
And the only reason I know that is the crossword question in Hot Fuzz when he walks into the hotel.
So it says, a way of organising a society in which a government ruled by a dictator controls the lives of the people and in which people are not allowed to disagree with the government.
So that
seems a bit more direct. A mass political movement that emphasises extreme nationalism, militarism, and the supremacy of both the nation and the single powerful leader over the individual.
See, if you look at China is a self-declared communist oligarchy.
Yes.
But how they operate fits that description to a T.
Because they use capitalism at their whim.
And
which is why most communisms fail.
Yes.
Because they don't have some type of capitalist regime to generate income to motivate people to work and grow food and all the basic things you need for living.
Yeah. Which is hilarious why capitalism is dubbed as evil.
Well, I can't remember.
What would you rather there was?
But I read, or I was watching a video the other day, and it said communists can live in a capitalist regime because the capitalist will end up providing for the communists, socialists, for the socialists who don't provide for themselves or the family or something like that. They expect it from the state because obviously the state gets it from the capitalists who pay the taxes to pay the socialists. But capitalists can't live in a socialist state because they'll be murdered.
Yeah, it makes sense.
It's crazy, and that's why I think we've discussed it before. No system is perfect. No system is perfect. We don't live in a perfect world, and if we did, there would be no yin and yang opposites. There would be no point in living if we didn't have differences, because everything would be the same.
Yeah, and humans are fallible creatures. Yeah. Humans are imperfect beings, so naturally everything we create is imperfect.
Yeah. However, capitalism is, throughout history, has produced the best living standards for the longest periods of time. So whatever we like to say about which regime we wish to push, capitalism gives everybody the freedom to be able to choose what they do, how they earn their money, how they feed their family. You can choose to do nothing and live a not very good life, or you can choose to work your ass off and live an exceptional life. Whereas in socialism, you don't have the choice. The government dictates to you what you can and can't do, when you can eat, where you can eat, how much you're going to eat. And there's no control over your own sovereignty.
Well, people who have a pick on capitalism, and they're like, oh yeah, it's an evil system. It's like, okay, well, if it's removed, who's going to make the shoes? Who's going to provide the food deliveries? Who's going to provide infrastructure, power, lighting, resources? If you think it's so terrible and you remove it, the people who say that have no plan about how to replace it at all, bar a vague conception of, oh, we'll just all be equal. Yeah, we'll all equally die.
Yeah, and that's what happens is socialism tends to be a race to the bottom, whereas capitalism is a race to the top. Now, I don't know about you, but I'd rather be racing everybody to the top than to the bottom. And that's what this whole woke equality thing is, and this is what most people are missing when they're pushing for equality. Is it doesn't mean everybody's going to be millionaires and everyone's going to have fantastic lives. It means everybody is going to be back to the Stone Age peasants.
There was a gentleman I listened to who was a retired general, and he was saying that whenever he assembled a military advisory board for whatever campaign, he ensured it was a board made up of diversity. And he said, now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking it's diverse of race. He said, no. He said, I need diversity of perspective.
Yes.
He said, so I didn't give a shit what they looked like or where they were from or how they spoke or whatever. So each time my board looked different, because all I needed at the time was the best people on hand who had the best variety of perspective that I could get at that time. So sometimes it was all white guys in their 50s like me, as he was saying, or it was a guy from China, it was all people from China, because that's the field I was working in. He was like, when you need, the word diversity has been co-opted and used improperly, it needs to be a diversity of perspective, because you get a variety of thought processes, and then you can combat more issues, more difficulties and challenges that arise because you've got that variety. If you've got 8 people who, great, one's gay, one's black, one's Chinese, one's handicapped, whatever, but they all think the same, if you can only fix things one way. And most things are not all fixed the same way.
Well, it's this whole push for diversity, in theory, is a great thing. Same as socialism in theory. It's a great thing. But what I'm actually seeing is people are getting into positions of power not based on their competency, which is, let's be honest, how any system runs. It doesn't matter if you're gay, straight, black, white, as you said, disabled, whatever. Any system runs on competency. And if you're putting somebody in a position of power or something that they're less competent than someone else, you're effectively guaranteeing your failure. Like, when you go to the hospital and have an operation, do you want the whoever's operated on you to get that because they were the best woman or the best black woman or the best gay black woman, or do you want the best surgeon possible?
Yes.
Irrelevant of what colour they are, sex, anything like that, because that never comes into my mind.
No.
When I go, if I were to go to hospital, I wouldn't care if it was, again, they were black, white, a woman, whatever. I want the best person to be operating on me, to give me the highest chance of living. And I think that's something that became quite damaging to the West and our hierarchical system. And again, even hierarchy in the wokeism age, I suppose, is becoming a swear word, isn't it? And it's like, well, no system works without hierarchy. If you have one person, they can't effectively communicate to 1,000 people. You have a hierarchy so that one person can communicate to 4 people. Those 4 people can communicate to another 4 people. Effectively like that. All goes down. And the guy in the middle doesn't necessarily need to know all the information from the guy at the bottom. And same as the guy at the bottom, or girl, or whatever you are, whatever you describe yourself as, doesn't need to know what the guy halfway through is going, because they've all got different jobs and different roles.
Yeah.
And there's only a certain amount of space and time in your brain for you to be able to process it. So that's why you have those structures. It'd be useless for me to, know the exact process of, I'm going down the wrong road here because obviously I own my own business and I know exactly every process and how everything works. But let's think of a corporate business.
Yeah, I was going to say, in your example, you have a handful of people that work for you. At that level, that's fine. If you then get to 100, that's unmanageable, doing everything yourself. You can't do it.
Yeah, but although it would be good knowledge to know, the CEO of a company doesn't really necessarily need to know exactly how the composition of whatever they're manufacturing is being built, or how the machine that manufactures their product works and operates. He just needs to know that it does, and that he needs to obviously push the company in the right direction in order to achieve whatever they're looking to achieve.
Yeah, it's the only way for it to work. Otherwise, going back to our opening point, you don't have any order, you just have chaos. There was a point I was going to pick up on.
Exactly, it's all about creating order.
There was a point I was going to pick up on what you said with racing to the top. When people perceive it in that, let's say it's communism races to the bottom, capitalism races to the top. I'd imagine people who push back against it would be daunted by that, perhaps because they may perceive it as a singular ladder, which is not true. There's infinite ladders.
Yeah, you just have to create your own ladder.
Or choose which one you want to go on. Yeah. Because if you wanted to be on the ladder of, I don't know, bodybuilding, that's a small number of people that you got to compete against. That's a good advantage. Downside is the workload and the barrier of entry is very, very high.
Yeah.
Very high to do that. But that's a ladder, and that's got numbers on its sides. That could be an appeal. Equally, I had a friend who used to work for an insurance company, and he went in just as the guy who answered the phones. But there was people in the office there who had their own little cubicles, would come in, potter around, go out for lunch, come back, leave a few minutes early. He, to this day, hasn't got a clue what they did, and they were on $50,000 a year. So he's like, you can get on a ladder and then just exist.
Yeah.
But, which is, we can all discuss the merits of whether that's a fulfilled life or not. But that would not exist in a communist society. Or if it did, you would not get paid for that.
Yeah, you wouldn't have a choice.
You would just be a cog in the machine.
Yeah.
Whereas now you can be a cog in the machine and get paid a cheeky amount for it as well.
And I'm glad you mentioned, about the ladder perspective, and I can't stress enough to especially the younger generation out there, because I know what it was like when we were younger. You there's a lot of pressure to get out there and achieve and start climbing whatever ladder it is, and a lot of the time it's so daunting, because especially these days they say you can do whatever you want. Well, that's not that helpful when you don't know what you want to do. If you know what you want to do, a little bit different. But if you've got no idea what you want to do and they say you can do whatever you want, people end up not doing anything because they don't really know what they want to do. But my point is, you need to do something. If you don't know what you want to do anything. Anything is better than nothing, because especially when you're young, you have the capability and the ability to jump ladders if you need to. And like most skills, they're transferable. So if you start climbing this ladder and you think, oh, actually, now I think I want to do that, then you tick off the list. Okay, well, look, actually, although I didn't want to start here, I've learned this, and this. It's given me these skills. I can transfer that to here, which has put me further up this ladder than if I started at the bottom. But I didn't know I wanted to be on this ladder at that time, so I'm glad I started this section, if you know what I mean. Does that make sense?
Oh, 100%. It's the adage that I'm realising now, and I didn't realise that I was actually, you didn't realise too much, I wasn't cognizant of the fact that I had employed this technique, is that we know the phrase ready, aim, fire. We then think we have to apply that to life, which is not how it works. What it should be is it should be fire, aim, ready. Just do something and be like, oh shit, that was wrong for these reasons. Yeah. Correct it, fire again. Okay, better, still wrong. Okay, correct it, fire again. There we go, better. Yeah. Whether it takes 3 iterations or 17, that's the way to do it. And you learn how to improve by doing it. Because if, you and I, if we didn't turn this on or these on, we could have sat here for months just been like, okay, we need to get, this light and that light, and that's going to take this long to order, and we need to get, okay, this, the blind's not quite right, we need to put the tint in here, and, these cameras and whatever. We could liberate it and play with our dicks for like 4 months.
You never start.
And we never would have started. And then by that time, we would have got angry with each other and just walked away.
Don't get me wrong, I'm probably more extreme on that other side of things, is I will, and kind of have always just gone out and just done it no matter what. Whether I thought I wanted to do it or not, I've always just had that mentality of let's just go out and do it. And then
that's great.
I don't think I consciously understood the point I just made previously. But again, you just go out and do it, and then life presents itself to you, doesn't it? And again, I can't remember who said it, but they were basically saying that life will present itself to you, or opportunities will present themselves to you when you're ready. And again, I guess it's like the goals and the magnet type thing. You know, for example, say you wanted to be a big property developer. Well, you've got no money. You're not going to go and start with a £10 million building that's for sale, are you? Because haven't got a chance in hell. So you have to go with the opportunity that you can actually get yourself into, which might be the 2-bed apartment or something like that. And then once you get to that, you realise you can do the 4-bed. Once you get to that, you realise you've got enough capital to do 10 beds and blah, 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 and then move into commercial. But you have to start somewhere and start doing something in order to start progressing and moving forward. But if you do nothing, and this is one thing my old man always said to me, he said, no matter where you are in life or what you want or looking to achieve, if you do nothing, nothing will happen. If you do something, at least something will happen. It might not be the right thing, it might not be what you want, but it's still better than nothing.
It's a very simple equation, isn't it?
And it was also, he usually referenced that to if I was getting stressed about something or, was worrying about something. And he was like, well, if you do nothing about it, it's not going to change. So just go out and do something about it. You could get it wrong, but at least you've done something. You might get 80% right and do 20% wrong, or you might do 20% right and 80% wrong, but it's still better than not doing anything at all. Because otherwise you just sat there worrying and thinking and not achieving anything. It's a waste of life, isn't it?
It's a very good output. I like that. There are some people that wouldn't have the wherewithal to do something about anything themselves. They wouldn't look to fix it themselves. They would want to complain about it until someone else took it off their hands. Which is I'm just thinking out loud though, because I'm
a lot of people
reminiscent of some people doing that.
Their power in the hands of other people. And this was my point about what I was talking about earlier before we started the podcast, why I wanted to talk about religion. Because religion these days, well, even in the 2 generations previously, it's been, well, for millennia, it's been manipulated to the point where it doesn't really have any basis in self-control and fulfillment. It's just turned into like a control system, hasn't it? Whereas, I was speaking with a friend the other day and they said, do you believe in God? And I say yes, but I don't believe in God in any way that you would comprehend as what most people believe in God. For me, I believe, and from my understanding, is the sun that creates all life on Earth, makes all the planets go around the solar system, controls everything, gives us energy, is God. That is my God. That wakes me up every morning. That gives me the warmth and the heat for everything to grow. Without the sun, no food can grow. Nothing can happen. And my thought on that is the Bible is effectively, or the parts I've read and looked at, personifications of the sun and natural events and stuff like that. So, for example, you've got the 12 disciples, 12 months of the year. You've got the cross, which is the sun travelling around the 4 seasons. You've got Jesus who walked on water. Well, what reflects off water? The sun. So God, sun, can walk on water. It's a reflection of the sun. Again, could be crazy, but to me it makes more sense than there's a man sat up there on a cloud protecting you, looking after you. Do you know what I mean? And then the point on that is, the question I was asked is, do you pray? And again, I said, I don't pray in the way most people would normally pray, because when you pray to God, you're giving your power to someone else, to a different entity. You're taking it away from yourself. Whereas, like we spoke about before with the positive affirmations, I talk to myself and I say, look, you can do this. This is what you want to do. This is what you want to achieve, rather than going, please some other entity, help me, I need your help, I say, look, you've got the power to do this. You're the only one that has the power to do it. And that pushes me forward and motivates me to do whatever it is, whatever task it is. And puts the power in my hands, so I know that I can do it.
It makes a lot of sense in regards to having the sun as the focal point. Because I mean, you look at the Egyptians; they had Ra, who was the sun god, and he was the
Was it
highest.
Louis the 13th who's Louis the 13th who praised God, praised the sun as well, and stuff like that.
Oh, maybe.
The sun was
I
his deity.
don't know, but yeah, would make sense. It makes sense. You're absolutely right. If you're saying that, if you're looking at worship as a god in regards to its powers as opposed to its sentience, yeah, inarguable. Yeah, it's the giver of all life.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely right.
He controls the seasons.
Oh, that's loud. Yeah.
A bit closer.
Yeah. No, yeah,
I just
definitely.
wanted everyone to hear that.
Seasoning controller.
And without it, we'd all be dead.
To me, if you were to call it God, which I wouldn't, but just to put it as a frame of reference, would be the energy of the universe.
Yeah.
So energy cannot be destroyed.
Mm-hmm.
It can only be changed.
God.
So we, as entities here, we cannot be destroyed. We're just changed.
Transferred.
So we can be rendered down to our individual atoms, but we're still here, part of the universe. We, as a collective, are made up of the remnants of stars.
Yeah.
So we are literally children of God, because we are star beings.
Yeah.
Made from the ashes of dying supernovas of giant gas clouds that are incomprehensibly vast.
Yeah.
And which would then lead on to the afterlife. I don't know what the afterlife is. I think it's arrogant for anyone to presume they do know.
Nobody does.
But I think it would be illogical to say there's nothing. Because it's crazy enough that we are here right now. This is crazy.
But the friend I was talking to about this the other day, they said that, you know, when you die and they say you go towards the light or don't go towards the light, their theories was that is you being pushed out of the next vagina. So effectively you die and
That's actually quite a good theory.
get reincarnated straight away.
That's a good theory.
I never
like
thought
that.
about it before, but I was like,
That's a bloody good theory.
it makes sense. And it would
Yeah,
make
that makes
sense
very good
about
sense.
the cycle of life, isn't it? 'Cause
Yeah.
it's all life, death, and just repeats itself.
There was one theory which is that, I mean, in regards to life and afterlife, there's endless theories. But there's one was that we live the same life over and over and over again until we get it right, like Groundhog
I've
Day.
heard that, yeah.
But the difference is with Groundhog Day, whereas he retains all of his memories, we don't retain our memories.
Yeah, we lose all memory.
Yeah, which is a lovely theory, but you're never going to know. If you don't retain your memories, you're never going to know.
And I was reading a theory the other day that was saying, because everything is binary, that there's the potential that in each reincarnation you come back as the opposite sex.
Cool.
So like in the past life I would have been a woman, and the one before that would have been male, etc., etc.
Then you can fully experience what it is to be people.
Yeah.
But then that's incredibly narcissistic as a human, because that would imply that the only existence there is worth having in this universe is human.
Is this human existence? So.
Which, if you speak to or listen to, not that because I doubt many people have the opportunity to speak to astrophysicists. If you listen to any astrophysicists like Brian Cox or Neil deGrasse Tyson, if the universe is infinite and every evidence points to the fact that it is mathematically impossible for there not to be life out there.
Yeah, of course, yeah. But I think we discussed it with where was it, didn't we, on the previous pod? Is again, this is another one that certain members of my family have actually like outwardly laughed at me when they said, "Do you believe in aliens?" And I'm like, I've never seen an alien, so I can't believe in it because I've never seen one. However, if the world and the universe is as vast as it seems, you're the stupid one for not thinking there is.
Yeah.
Like, are you that ignorant to think we are the only one? So what there's thousands and millions of universes, isn't there? And we know how vast just our universe is. And is there various different solar systems in the universe? Is there only one sun in the universe?
Yeah, so we're in the Milky Way solar system.
Exactly, and there's various different suns, and so we're just one sun in one universe of millions, potentially billions. To really think we're the only one. Mathematically, as you say, it's almost impossible.
If you want to grasp the fact, like, if you try and talk to people about how big the universe is, like, okay, look at the sun. Okay, can you look at it for very long? No. Okay, so that's pretty powerful. The Earth is enormous. The Earth is incredibly big. The sun is an order of magnitude bigger than that. It's comparing a pea to a basketball. Okay.
It's even bigger than that, isn't it?
Let's say, just for argument's sake, because you can see, you know what a pea is, you know what a basketball is. All the stars in the night sky, they are the same as our sun, most likely bigger, because our sun is not a big sun.
Mm-hmm.
The light we're seeing from them, they're already dead.
Yeah.
In real time, they're dead.
So far away.
It's so far away that them right now, they've already turned to black holes, and only now that we're seeing them.
And doesn't light travel at 330,000 meters per second?
Something insane like that. The speed of light is insurmountably fast.
And to put that in perspective, well, I don't know exactly, but
let's do it. Let's do some perspectives.
The Earth is not 330,000 meters wide, is it?
No, meters is probably more than that for meters.
It's meters per second, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
So every second it travels that far.
Yeah, it travels 3 kilometers a second. Yeah, to have the hubris to say that humanity is the only thing in existence. So if you were to be reincarnated,
so it's 12. So the Earth is 12,742 kilometers wide.
So that's the diameter, not the circumference.
At its widest point.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so that's the diameter. So from end to end of it, as the elliptical ball that it is, it's 12,000.
So it'd be 12 million meters.
Yeah.
So again, that's only
a quarter of that. You've travelled a quarter of the Earth.
So it's 36 seconds, and it's got from one side of the Earth to the other.
Yeah. 36 seconds.
Yeah.
And it takes us 24 hours to fly that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Insanity. It's incomparable. It's incomparable. The only thing that I've come ever even close to comprehending the sheer scale of it is the JFK Space Center in Florida.
Never been.
Go.
Yeah.
Big recommendation. We did the Hubble telescope experience, which basically sit you down in like an IMAX cinema for an hour, and they just so this is all the footage we have from it, and it's mind blowing. But just the colours and the shapes and the nebulous clouds, and how the universe has like clouds of like particulate dust, but they're the size of our galaxy, and it's just, I don't understand why I'm looking at that kind of stuff. Yeah, the space is just incredible.
Yes, man.
Utterly incredible.
And as we say, if that star is like that small, you can barely see it. It's already dead.
Already dead. And it's bigger than our sun.
Yeah, and again, especially on a clear night, most of us live in towns and cities these days. The light pollution is dreadful. I lived in Woodcote for a couple of years, and there was basically zero light pollution. And obviously you can see I'd probably say 1,000,000 times more stars than you can see, living in towns and stuff like that. And it's literally like, again, incomprehensible, innumerable. You wouldn't even be able to put a number on how many there are out there.
We went out with one of my exes. We went to the Isle of Wight for a week, and there was like a little lake on the property we were staying at, and they had a little boat. So we went out at midnight and just laid in the boat, just staring at the stars, because you can just it's so bright just from the stars.
Yeah, that's crazy.
This is madness. It's unbelievable.
Anyway, we've been going on about stars for too long.
I like stars, man.
They're pretty cool.
But
what I wanted to talk about, because you briefly mentioned it before the pod, is language.
Yes, sir.
This
you
was
like language?
A very interesting point that I wanted to get onto.
Yes, indeed, sir. Well, do you want to lead or shall I?
No, you go first.
Okay.
Because I don't know vast amounts about it. I just know a few theories and stuff like that about, you physically create your reality through your spoken word, etc.
So this was the thought I had on this was prompted by listening to a lady called Valerie Friedland, She's a professor of linguistics in the University of Nevada. So she talks about the evolution of language, and the more complex the language, the more simple the civilization, or the smaller the group. So the simpler the language is, the more expansive it is, because it's used for vast numbers of people, so it has to be easy to understand. The point that I started off with was listening to her explaining why we have filler words. So why we have and like and you know. So UH, first of all, just say it. Yeah. So that uses no tongue or lip movement. It's just but it buys a little bit of time.
Yeah.
So it buys a little bit of time for your brain to come up with something. Is the polite version of that, or the more evolved version of that, because you're not just stood there with your mouth open. You're there like and it's not as loud, which I thought was hilarious. That they actually have the two different things. Yeah. And also the use of like, the exact same thing, but just more of a colloquial, contemporary thing here. But it was very interesting that she was explaining there's actually reasons for this here. You'd have all of those to show that you're actually taking the time to think about what you're talking about, instead of just reading things off straight away, because we talk so much to each other and we value what we say to each other so much that we don't want to make a mistake. So that's why we have put the ers and the ums and the blank space into it. It makes you think that you're actually thinking about it, which is very interesting.
No, that's a good point.
But the overall use of language, which I don't think people understand or recognize, that if people don't read, even if it's just fiction or non-fiction, or listen to either way, you are not expanding your use of language and the use of the vocabulary that you have.
And that's one thing I noticed massively and had a huge impact on my vocabulary and the words I use, is when I started listening to more podcasts, started listening to more audiobooks. I'll be honest, I don't read masses because I just listen to the audiobooks when I drive and stuff like that. Now, I do like to get the hard copy, because especially in an audiobook, they're always like, refer to this page. And obviously you can't. But then I'll tend to like reread that chapter or refer back to it, and let that spark my imagination or memory. But it has a massive impact, doesn't it?
Well, the our life and our understanding of life is limited by the words that we can use to comprehend it. So the barest, simplest maths of it being that the more words you know, the more you'll be able to experience life and be able to comprehend it in a greater, more deeper fashion.
And is that why there's a massive push for education, do you think? Even in the sort of more affluent families?
Would that be a reason for education?
Or there's such a heavy emphasis placed upon it?
See, it'd be interesting. It would certainly be a component, but I wouldn't know if it'd be a conscious one, because I'd be interested to know what the split was on the types of, let's just take university education, for example. What would be the split in humanitarian degrees versus trade versus smart degree or something like that? What would be the split between which ones are going for? Because you're not
like the sciences and the arts. Yeah,
so this science, maths, art, whatever. If you were to have biology, chemistry, physics, maths, they're all analytical. Whereas you take history, art, music, or English, that's more humanitarian, as it were, so it's more creative.
Well, I think I didn't go to university, so I don't know.
Neither did I, so we're talking shit.
From experience with people that have gone to university, I think there is only two. It's Bachelor of Arts and Bachelor of Science. So
there you go.
You have BSA and BSc.
Okay.
The letters you have after your name. Now, Matt and I have different letters after our name, but we won't go into that.
Why did you bring that? I've got to edit this out now. Yeah, no, I'll be interested to know, because if you are going to... English is a given about expanding your vocabulary, because you are literally studying the language and the structures, and whether it's English literature or language, you're still going to be exposed to syntax and semantics and everything there. Maths, you wouldn't. Science, you probably would just by proxy, because you would expand your understanding of vocabulary, but for like specific areas. I think if you were to take any form of English, probably history as well, you probably would have specifically grow your language, but language in so far as that would help you describe life overall, or language itself. Whereas I think, if you would say maths, that's quite specific.
Which is one of the sciences, isn't it?
Yeah, so it's in lumped up into the same thing. But if, the more words that you have in your arsenal, the better you are to fully understand life. Because if you take it from the extreme end, you take a caveman who can only grunt at you, versus Aristotle.
Yeah, he can comprehend and then relay his comprehension much easier to anyone than the caveman can, can't they? And he can communicate on
it's much more
higher frequency, I guess.
And you'd have the ability of empathy as well, so you'd be able to understand the concept of seeing something from another person's perspective. Yes, I think language is vitally important, and it's something that is, even if you were to be consummately well read, it's still something that you are evolving and learning as you go along speaking it. Here being a prime example. If we compare ourselves to episode 1, how we speak, versus now.
And like everything, it's a process, isn't it? You've got to constantly go through it and learn and progress and improve.
But it's just practice. Like everything, the key to attaining proficiency in anything is repetition.
And as we discussed previously, is if you're not going forward, you're regressing, aren't you? So if you're not improving, you're regressing. So you need to be constantly improving daily on that. There's the M again. On that, aspect of your life. Otherwise, you are going to be moving backwards.
Even if it's just one step.
Yeah.
The Slight Edge is that. The Slight Edge is a book called. Well, that is one book actually.
Slight Edge.
A Slight Edge by Jeff Olson. He was saying that purported overnight successes are not overnight successes.
No such thing as an overnight success.
They're just compounded results that have happened over time, and it's the small little steps sustained every single day, wherever you choose to do. That all adds up over time.
Well, I think it was, Warren Buffett, extremely successful investor. I think, I'm making these figures up, but I saw his compound interest growth in his stocks. I think by the age of 40, 45, he was bearing in mind he'd been in the stock market his whole life, he was maybe 100, 200 millionaire or something like that.
Jesus.
Obviously now, 40 years later, he's like a multi-billionaire. I don't think it's the most expensive or the most profitable hedge fund in the world, but he's one of them, and that's just come from compounding.
Consistency and persistence is my other point.
Persistence.
Yeah. Persistence.
Was that the only point you were going to make on persistence? Or?
Persistence. I was just saying over and over.
Persistence.
No, I think with
being persistent now.
Yeah. Oh wait, shut up. Yeah, I mean it ties in with what we were talking about earlier. For you lovely listeners and audience who have not seen this, but Max has been slightly stressed out recently due to more bank holidays than is feasible or is reasonable to expect in 1 month, plus issues and a lovely little holiday you had.
Yes. Coupled with massive expansion.
Exactly. So yeah, he's been a little bit stressed recently, but you haven't given up, and you haven't bowed down. If anything, you've doubled down on the amount of work you're putting into it, which is the persistence to allow it to be successful and to continue to be.
And I was speaking to another close friend the other day, and I was saying, I hate stress. I can't wait to get out of this stressful period, blah, blah, blah. And they said, I know you say you hate stress. However, every time you get out of it, you put yourself straight back in it when you don't need to. Are you sure you hate stress? Are you sure? And they said, I think you actually thrive off the stress. And I never really thought about it before, and I was like, maybe that's it. And maybe that goes back to our point previously at the beginning of the pod, where you have to put yourself under that immense pressure to push forward and gain that. Is it excitement or thriving off the stress and the fear? Going back to the caveman days, or what do you think?
We emotionally grow, and we have our sense of fulfillment the same way that our muscles grow. Our muscles grow not because we really want them to, but we put them under stress or resistance. Weight training, that's why it's called resistance training. They grow because we introduce them to stress, and that stress breaks them down and then builds them back stronger. So humans work exactly the same way. There's a deleterious side of it where you can put too much stress onto it. Mm-hmm. So if you've never squatted before and you squat 100 kilos, you're going to tear something.
See you later, knees.
Yeah, same thing as if you, if you try and take on the social and emotional responsibilities of a family whose both parents have just died, that's going to cripple you.
Yeah.
But a little bit of stress over time means you can handle more and more and more. Mm-hmm. And the same way with handling weights, you don't stack the weights up and up on top of you. So you're not trying to bench press while you're trying to squat at the same time. Yeah. That would be hilarious to watch someone try and do that. So you'd handle one at a time.
Yeah.
So you can then handle it that way, and you would get better at it, managing it, moving forward.
That make a good point, because then sort of you deal with, or from my experience, I deal with like one really stressful situation, striving for that goal or whatever it is I'm looking to achieve. And because you've been dealing with that stress for so long, you kind of get used to it, because that's what what's the word? You know how people get stuck in comfort, and they're used to the comfort, so they don't like that it's changing. Maybe that's an element there, is I'm so used to dealing with the stress, and I get out of it, I've achieved whatever I want to achieve, and I'm like, oh, I'm still alive. Okay, let's do it again.
So what would be... Stress is not bad. Stress is good. It's very important. What I think, if you're listening to anyone, or anyone is propagating the idea that you should avoid stress, is wrong.
No,
what you should be aware of, or should be paying more attention to, in the exact same way that you are exercise, is the recovery.
Yeah. The recovery aspect of it, yeah.
In the exact same way that you, you and I, we exercised yesterday, gentle warm up, and then stretching afterwards. So if we hadn't stretched, both of us this morning would be fucked. So that's, granted, still a little sore, but not like so much you'd notice. Yeah. But if we hadn't done that, assisted recovery on the way to rehabbing our muscles, it would have been a lot harder this morning, and then that would have been a chronic stress that you were having throughout the day. So then if you were to add anything else on top of it, then that would start to feel like a bit much. But as it were, you'd recovered from that, and then today you're like, okay, cool, I'm now capable or ready to face the next thing. And the same thing should apply emotionally to any sort of emotional stress in that perspective, whether it's from work, family, relationships. As long as you are able to recover from that, then you can move on to the next thing. And some things are very stressful, like if you were to have, say, something that was preying on your mind over the weekend, for example, then if that's overly stressful and you don't have the tools to deal with it, or you haven't got the recovery built into it following shortly afterwards, it will impact everything and make it harder to achieve anything else you want to do, or just do the things that you plan to do. So I think stress management is important. Stress avoidance is dangerous because it's like an immune system. You need to have that exposure to get used to it. But I think the recovery afterwards is very important.
That's a good point. I think that's probably what happens. I go through the recovery period, and then I recover, and then I'm like,
hell yeah.
Oh, let's go again.
What's the next thing? Yeah.
Let's do it again. Let's go a bit harder this time.
Well, and you can.
Yeah.
You absolutely can. The exact same thing where you have the dopaminergic rush from recovery from an exercise. You're like, I can lift heavier.
Yeah, exactly. I did it.
Yeah, or you're like, I lifted heavier than I thought I could.
Yeah, but let's
see if I can do more.
I think that's exactly what it is. They're like, oh, I didn't think I could do it.
Yeah,
and I did it. Okay, right, let's go again.
Yeah, put a little bit more on.
Yeah, how far can I go this time?
Yeah,
but then when does it stop? Does it stop?
Well,
because I always say to myself, look, do this, and we've discussed it before, and you'll be happy. You'll be in the position you want to be in. Then you get there, and then it might take you 9 months to get there, and within a month of getting there, I'm like, oh, this is hella boring. Let's go again. Let's do something else. But is that this is the word I learnt from you. I knew it before, but you always use it, so I like using it. Is that the dichotomy of life? Is that you think you want to avoid certain things because they put you under pain and stress, as long as they're positive, of course. Put you under pain and stress, and then you get through them. You think, oh, I don't want to do that again, and then the enjoyment or excitement is short-lived. So you think, okay,
the completion is short-lived.
Yeah. So I'll put myself through the pain again.
I think that is the nature of life. I just think we change them over time.
Through different civilizations
or even on a microcosm. So you are not going to put yourself through the same stressful situation, one after another. They'll be different each time. Mm-hmm. Whether it's I was going to say this van, he's broken down, but that's out of your control. It's not something that you're elected to do. Whether it's, this particular event over here, which is, 36 units to this day, you're not going to go through that and be like, oh, there were these issues with this then. Okay, that was stressful, sorted out. You're then not going to do the exact same thing the next time because you're like, oh, I've got these issues.
Yeah. Or because next time you know the issues that can occur, so you overcome them before they
exactly. You build in the support already so the issues don't happen. So you're not making the same mistakes over time.
And you're building and improving as well.
Yeah. So you're not going to repeat the exact same thing. They'll change over time, even minusculely, but they will change over time. Different variables
with different people you're working with and
and then
etc.
Yeah, and then it will evolve from, oh, I don't, work is done there. Oh, I'm going to have a kid. That's a whole other stressful thing. Yeah,
that's hopefully a bit further in the future.
Yeah, but that'd be a good thing to have. And again, elective, but that'd be an amazing thing to have.
Would be a good thing. But we discussed this before, didn't we? I'm knocking on 30. You're not far off.
No, catch you up, mate. Next.
But we, in society, are having kids a lot later, aren't we? And I was literally having this conversation with my sister the other day, saying, I think it's actually devastating that we all don't have kids now. However, I don't necessarily want them, if that makes sense. I think it's a shame that we don't, based on various different factors. But especially when we're here to procreate, I talk about it ad nauseum, but that is really the only reason we're here. Everything else is additional, a benefit or whatever it is. But is it wrong for me to be like, even at my age, I'm not? I want to say ready, because I don't think you'll ever be ready, will you? Is it selfish? That's the word I'm looking for. Is it selfish to me to care more about what I'm doing in my life than to procreate?
It's tricky because it's not just about you. You can't procreate by yourself.
Really? I thought everything was about me.
Oh. Well, that's been Just Discourse. Because no individual can reproduce by themselves.
But we could all just go and reproduce with a random person.
Yeah, but that's no way to live.
Exactly.
And that's no way to propagate more humans. That's an awful existence.
It's chaos.
Yeah, because then you have loads of, if that's something that's encouraged, which it seems like it is, to have all this free sex,
it is pushed massively.
Then it would imply that there's no response. Not that it would imply. It has implied that there's no responsibility for men to stick around. Mm. There's no responsibility for women to be faithful or men to be faithful. But there's zero talk about how you then handle being pregnant.
Yeah. And do you think birth control's had a massive effect on that?
Well, we'll be here for hours.
Because back in the day, you know, like.
Okay, let me just finish your first question first, then we'll come on to this because this is a rabbit hole. Pardon the pun. No, it doesn't work. Is the right time and way selfish? Because it's not just down to you, and you want to bring a kid into this world in the most loving, compassionate environment you possibly can. Financially, I know you. I know your partner. If you two were going to have a kid, that kid would not have a problem at all in regards to money. In regards to where you two are emotionally, that's not for me to say. Only you two can know that. If you two are at that emotional stage right now where you are ready to form a family, fantastic. Then that's sorted. If you're not, you can't force that. It happens organically, and that will only happen organically over time.
That's what I mean. So then it's if I don't want it, it's not selfish, or is it selfish because I don't want it?
You would want it if you two were at that place. I think that
we're both at the same time.
I think it's different for men than it is for women. Women have a biological imperative where they hit a certain age and they're like, "Fuck, I need a kid." Okay, and then they start hunting. Then they start hunting for a man to have that kid with. With a guy, I think we look for companionship, and then if that companionship works, we then want a kid. I think it's different in that perspective because
you want especially for males like us. I think most, well, not most, but there are a lot of guys out there that don't even think this far. But you know, if I were to have a child with someone, I'd want their mother to be the most loving person who's going to look after them as best as possible.
No question. Yeah, I'd want my girlfriend, wife, partner, whatever,
boyfriend,
to be. If I'm my boyfriend, all right, I'm gay. To be the best woman out there for my kids.
Yeah,
that's what I would want. But you're not going to know that by being like, okay, I'm 27 now, I should have a kid, now, because then when the kid's 13, I'll be 40, and that's great. It's a good time of year, which that's good timing. That's similar to me. I mean, my folks were 30 when I was born, 31. So I was like,
about the same as my parents.
Yeah, which is interesting because they were a generation before. Is that late? No, I think it's probably just average. I think it's just bang on pretty much.
No, so I actually think the generation before, the average birth was, I think it was 24 or 25. Whereas now I think it's 28, 29.
Okay, that's not too bad.
Or no, was that marriage rate? That may have been marriage rate. We did discuss it in one of the podcasts previously. I think that was marriage rate. People who tend to get married younger in the previous generation. Whereas in this generation, I think it's 50-50 now. Whereas previously it was 70-30.
About being married or
so
not being married?
So people get married to not being married. So there's a massive 50% of the population that don't get married.
Well,
I need to check those figures though, because does that count the whole population or just people of marriage age?
So,
or just people in relationships?
A disclaimer here: 63% of statistics are made up.
Yep, and 85% of my statistics are made up too. But they sound good.
It is sound good. No, it's definitely the age has definitely moved on. My my aunt and her husband, they had their son when they were 19, 20. And then their daughter like a few years after that, which was very interesting because they brought their kids up. So by the time they were in their late 30s, early 40s, their kids were independent. And they were like, sweet. And then my aunt and her husband were like, great, let's do whatever the hell we want now.
Well, that's the thought that I've been having recently is the longer I wait to have it.
Little alien blob.
Yes. Yeah, the longer I wait to have a little alien blob, the older I'll be when they become independent. And surely you want, like my old man, it's great now that he's not too old. He's not old. To a point where, we can actually go for a drink, do all this type of stuff.
What's it, a 30-year age, is it?
Yes, he was 29.
There you go, yeah.
So he's going to be 60.
Same age you are now, mate, bloody hell.
Yeah, exactly same age I am now. And he had 2 kids by my age. And that's what gets me thinking. I'm like, shit, he had 2 kids already. And then next year he'd have had 3 kids. Because my brother's only a year younger than me.
You got someone older than you?
Yeah, I've got an older sister.
I didn't know that.
Did you not?
No, I was watching 3 of you.
So between me, my sister, and my sisters, there's 5 years. So my older sister is exactly 5 years older than me. Well, she's born in May. I'm July. She's 5 years older than me.
Whoa.
My younger sister is 5 years younger than me. And then my brother is a year and 20 days younger.
I had no idea you had an older sister.
Yeah, no, I had an older sister. Yeah.
Oh, there you go. Well, they say, 2 kids by 29, interesting. But it's completely different circumstances that you're comparing yourself to when he was your age that you are now. Now, I'm in no position to say which one's easier or harder, but they are different.
Yeah,
there's different dynamics.
And we live in a different world as well.
Yeah, different dynamics for a multitude of reasons, the birth control being one of them.
I don't think I had birth control back then, Matt.
Yeah, they're not that old, are they?
No.
So, birth control was introduced in the late 60s, early 70s.
Yeah, they would have been like 8.
Men's testosterone has been dropping 1% since 1980. It's dropped 43% since 1980.
That's absolutely mental, isn't it?
43% drop in testosterone. Less than a decade after the introduction of the progesterone-packed pill.
Do you think that's due to the birth control or due to various other things?
Correlation does not mean causation, but I think it's interesting.
Because I think there's various different factors. Obviously, we've all got phones and tablets these days, which we know, although they won't want you to talk about it, is they give off radiation and all that shit. They're usually in our pockets, so that's probably microwaving our testicles all day.
Flying on a plane gives off radiation.
Yeah, flying on a plane.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's high levels, but non-stop all day long, it's going to have an effect.
Maybe.
So estrogen in the water supply, it's like one of the only things they can't filter out. And we all drink recycled water, especially if we live in towns and cities. We all drink recycled water. So if you're drinking tap water, you're drinking estrogen mixed with fluoride, mixed with bleach and all sorts of other chemicals which can't have a good effect on the body. Literally says on the bleach bottle, do not ingest. But if you have it in your drinking water, it's fine. And, various different aspects like that. Plastics. Lots of plastics as well.
Lots of plastics. Well, the plastic is the concerning one because the plastics is the phthalates in the plastic, spelt PTHALETS. Silent P at the front. But the phthalates contribute to that as well in regards to the sort of plastic we ingest and the reduction in testosterone.
Have you noticed since I started talking about radiation on my testicles, I moved the tablet away because 10 minutes is going to help.
Makes all the difference, buddy.
My phone's still here, though.
Absolutely. To answer your question, there's definitely an influence to it.
Coupled with food. It's much more molested than it was when we were younger.
Molested food.
It is. I think that's all you can really describe it as.
And that's our new band. We Are Molested Food. Our album's coming out this week.
You need to change the name of the band, mate. Don't you call it that?
We do need to change it. Yeah, We Are Molested Food.
Food molestation.
If we're gonna be called that, we need to do death metal. Okay.
Yeah, I don't think you're gonna get in very far.
No, I don't think so. That's very good.
But there's all sorts in there. All sorts. Anyway, what other points did you have, Matt?
That was what I had written down for now, my friend.
That was it?
Yeah.
Should we wrap it up?
Let's do it. We've covered a lot.
It's you today. Wrapping up.
Thank you, everyone, for listening. This has been an absolute pleasure, as always. And do not forget to subscribe and to like. We will bring these out every Wednesday at midday, every single week moving forward. If you want to leave a comment in the section below, just with any thoughts or queries, feel free to do so. Max, it's been a pleasure.
Pleasure as always, my friend.
Until next time.
Take care.